Okay, so since we're starting our
Mhm.
conversation on the body this month or the next 4 weeks, our exploration, I want to call us all together to in like we're usually focusing on taking that inhale together to come together, but today let's focus on the exhale, that release, that moment of death where the last breath leaves us, and know that then when we choose to take that breath in, we're breathing in new life. We're breathing in new ways of thinking, new perspectives. What kinds of things are we going to be playing with for the next 4 gatherings about creating a new kind of body, whether it be in our physical bodies or in our homes? So, I want to just invite us all to take a moment and give our exhale our undivided attention. Not that we're not aware when we inhale, but really think about that extended exhale, just letting everything leave the body. And even seeing if we can linger for just a moment. After the inhale, when we go to exhale, can we linger there for just a moment? The space between the inhale and the start of the exhale. It's in that lingering space, that space in between, in the becoming and the inhale, and the undoing, the releasing in the exhale. That space in between the expansion and the contraction. There's so much magic there, so much possibility. When we can allow ourselves to just linger a little bit with that exhale, we know that that inhale is right there. We know that breath is right there. And we know that we are alive, that we are safe. And if we're here right now and able to take that inhale, that lingering is okay. Let's
Great
talk
start.
body.
Great start. So here's what I wrote down. I wrote down new year, new diet. Because I feel like that I remember when Jason and I used to go to the gym before we had equipment at home. It was like, brace yourself for the next 2 weeks. The gym is going to be super packed. We just got to muscle through this. No pun intended, right? And then everybody's going to leave and then it'll be back to our normal thing, right? And so one of the questions I have is why do we want to lose the weight? Like, what is it about the new year that I have two? One, why do we want to lose weight? And what energy is that always coming from? Like, I hate my body, add on all of the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second question is, why do we start over in January, which kind of like melds into time, right? Like, why January? Why not just whatever? I want to get healthy because I love myself and I want to, or for whatever reason. So, yeah.
I'm laughing. I just was scanning through. I saw something posted by one of my friends on Instagram, and she posts, I'm opening a gym called Resolutions. It will have exercise equipment for the first 2 weeks, and then it turns into a wine bar for the rest of the year.
Probably be rather successful.
Probably.
That's funny.
So I'll throw in my 2 cents, at least on one of the questions. So the why, and even deeper than I think the feeling of, I don't like my body, I want to change. I think some of it has to do with guilt of the excesses you allow yourself over the holiday. And if you eat things that you don't normally eat, and then it's like, oh, no, got to get control back. It's like you lose control, and then you've got the guilt, and then you need to gain that control back through, what's the right word I want to use? Restricting yourself. And it's not even just, the exercise fad, it's the food fad that goes along with that. I can't tell you how many things came across my Facebook feed that I was just like, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this, because it was all the pills and all the drinks and all the things for the new year. And, then it followed up with all the hypnotherapy options. And it was just all this crap on my feed. It was like magically, ding, 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 ding. The first happened, here we go. And I think for me, it stems a lot from guilt.
I agree with that 100%. And another perspective that I have is that span between like Thanksgiving to New Year is a lot of family, traditionally, family gatherings, connections, winter months, like a lot of emotional coping through eating, drinking, carb loading. Like I think there's even maybe some research that I've seen, like winter months like send you into that like hibernation type of eating philosophy. And if you don't have good coping skills, like of course you're going to go into like the food and the alcohol, and like kind of what you said, like that guilt of the excess, or maybe even just like the awareness, like that's something that I'm super aware of. It's like when I allow myself some things, like wine is a major factor in my body. When I have it, like my effects are really strong, mental fog and inflammation. So I'm just curious if some of that is attributable to the timeline too, like just a lot of mini traumas and no other ways of coping other than food and alcohol.
But just deciding to change for January 1st is not going to fix those mini traumas that you just described, right? So
well, you might not have as many exposures, like if we're kind of out of the family season, or like the social season, I'm totally like speculating here. This is just kind of off the cuff thoughts. Like you're not going to have as many traumas, so you're not going to need as many coping strategies. But
What about you, Tanya?
Well, I'm like, oh, I'm floating up here in outer space right at the moment.
Put some concrete blocks on your feet, bring you down a little bit. Go back to earth.
No.
Paige and Tanya, back to earth, please.
Coming back to earth, but I'm bringing the cosmos with me, just because I'm loving this conversation, because several years ago I was also in that same, actually I would say probably in my 40s, I was in that space of needing to every New Year's transform. And then the 5 years that I had when I switched over to, I had 1 year that I was like, all right, I'm so sick and tired of this shit. I'm so sick and tired of going on diets and feeling crappy about myself. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to eat a paleo lifestyle. I'm going to be strict about eating a paleo lifestyle, and I'm going to exercise, doing something that feels good. I decided to try CrossFit. I started it January 2nd because I was like, the first is too cliche, so I'm going to start on the 2nd. I think it was that week. I cleaned everything out of my holiday pantry, had friends come over and take food. And then I spent the next 5 years like very strict about that. And it was like, oh, this is really interesting, because the vow that I made to myself was, if I eat this way, if I eat within these guidelines and I exercise, like, let the chips fall where they may, body. Like, if you're going to be fat, you're going to be fat. I'm tired of fighting with this. And so I noticed I had basically 5 years of this experiment where 3 of those were hardcore. Brenda can attest to showing up on a dive vacation with me where I was like precisely this and precisely that about how I ate, what I took, as far as like supplements go. And I had the experience of watching my body gain weight over the holidays. My activity and my eating stayed exactly the same, but the body gained weight. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder how much of this is my patterning and conditioning that we gain weight around the holidays because we eat too much. And then, it fell off automatically every spring. So then I had the experience of coming off of that, loosening the reins and still noticing that same. But as soon as I had awareness of the beliefs that were going on in my head about the expected weight gain, I actually had 1 year where I lost weight during the holidays.
Hmm.
So, and I wasn't changing things up that dramatically. So I had that experimentation. And then this last year, what was really significant for me, the last couple of years actually, was moving from eating a certain way to what would it just be like to eat for pleasure before, during, and after, to move in pleasure before, during, and after. Like what feels good that I'm like, yes, I want to do this or eat this. When I'm eating it, is this pleasurable to eat? Does it taste good? Am I enjoying it? Or how I'm moving right now in this moment, does it feel good? And then the after, like if I feel sore or beaten up after moving, that's not pleasurable. If I feel over full or like my body doesn't like what I've ingested, then I don't have the pleasure after. So I've been exploring all of this. And so where I'm at right now was moving through this holiday season, using those parameters, pleasure before, during, and after. I didn't eat the same kinds of things. I didn't have good or bads. Same thing with movement. And so now I'm like, I'm building a body from unconditional love. I've never done this before. I can't wait to see how it turns out. There has been no guilt. There has been no like, oh, this is bad. Like you've just been out of control. But I've also done a lot of work with those traumas. Where do I find my safety? My safety is within me, within my control, and being okay with things that I was never okay with before. Like my mom's celebration of life yesterday. I didn't know how to do that. I've never done it before. So that's where I'm like, I'm up here and I'm like noticing all of the, like even last year, I remember last year, I was like, I just want to love my body. I just want to love my body no matter where it's at. And now I'm like, psh, I fucking love all of this so much. And it's like playing with the unconditional. So
I think
I'll
that's
just
like, go ahead.
hover up
Tanya.
here.
I think it's very similar to like, well, obviously it's compassion, right? It's like, how often do we do things from a place of compassion and wanting? Like, I think I haven't been on the eating side, but I think I've been on the workout side. Like I used to, when Tanya said things about like going to the gym and you're super sore, like looking back now, like that's my body's way of saying like, you need to take a break. But, you know, in a, what do you call it? Gym culture. I don't know what you want to say. It's like, no, you just work through it, right? Like that's just part of working out. you just feel that, and you just need to move your body, and you need to, get through that, versus that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good for the entire workout to barely be able to squat, because I'm just, it's so sore. And like what Tanya was saying is like figuring out other things. Like I do like to lift weights, but exploring other ways to move my body besides just lifting weights. Like I love to ride my bike. I love to swim. Like, why can't those things be part of what is fun and joyful, versus like either you're going to do Pilates, yoga, or working out, lifting weights, and that's the only thing that you can do, to do that. And so I think what I've had to, maybe what some people have had to kind of refigure how they think about the eating. For me, it's been more so like, okay, if I'm not working out with the weights every single day, because I think I used to have a story like, if you're not weightlifting, somewhere along the lines, like you gain weight, like you need to be weightlifting. And so just been, we've been surfing the entire time we're here, and we're having a blast, and I love it. And like the feeling of, does it move different parts of my body? I'm sure it does. And am I equally exhausted sometimes? Absolutely. And just this idea that it has to look, a certain way, I think.
But it has to be at the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I just want to point out that piece where you were talking about, like, oftentimes we're like, oh, but if we're working out and we're sore afterwards, that's, like, obviously we're making gains. We're doing
right.
something.
Yeah.
We're doing it right if we hurt. And what I've been playing with is, what if that didn't have to be true?
Yeah.
I can do a pull-up in this body. And I went from doing pull-ups in CrossFit and like making myself sore and almost punishing myself to get to that point and injuring myself a number of times. Whereas now when I do a pull-up, it's like, it's just for the joy of exploring my strength. It's not to show somebody, oh, I can do 20 pull-ups, what can you do, kind of thing. Like, think about why we're moving, why we're lifting heavy, and then walking. Oftentimes I think we're walking that line of pushing ourselves to do something because we think that's what we need to do for our gains, versus like, why do you want to be able to do 20 pull-ups or lift 150 pounds over your head? Is it so that you can say, I can lift 150 pounds over my head? That might be great if I'm thinking about, something in my life where I need to be able to lift 150 pounds over my head. But yeah.
I've shared with you all this book that I'm reading, the More Than a Body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a
Let me see if I can find the author while you're talking.
Thank you. I think it's a set of sisters or twins. She or they are exploring body objectification. And I feel like what you're describing, Tanya, is such a common thing where, like, it's admired to be strong. It's admired to be fit. It's honored. It's praised. And if you're not those things, you're like the opposite, right? Like, you're unhealthy, you're lazy. It's like this polarization. And I'm like, I can come up with like a handful of people that are addicted to wellness, right? And it's like interfering with their livelihood, with their business, with their
wellness,
with their health, right? And so it's so interesting to me to think about how we like honor and praise. And I mean, it's really just objectification of the body. And for what? Like, exactly what you were saying, like, what's the value of being able to lift that amount of weight is it just to check it off the list, like to brag about it? Is it your ego, or is it like your function? Or I don't know, a function, like a firefighter might have a function of being able to lift high value of weight. But yeah, I just think it's really bringing up awareness to me on how much I have been exposed to that and how I continue to. And it's like trying to like neutralize it in my body and my experience so that, well, for one, so I can enjoy my own body, but I'm also like being a witness and an example to my children and trying to offer them a new way, like maybe what does feel good to you versus like you have to go to the gym and you have to lift weights. And oh, it's so interesting.
The book, yeah,
And
More Than a
it's
Body. Is it Lexi Kite and Lindsay Kite?
Yeah.
it's also so important to allow ourselves so much compassion that this is how we've operated. Because when you think about, like, if you drill it all down to the super basics of it all, why do bodybuilders go to try and build up a physique to be seen as strong? And I know I went through this in my heavy duty CrossFit phase. Like, I wanted to be seen as strong on the outside because I didn't feel strong on the inside. Now, some people do feel strong on the inside and they use that outer projection of strength. But most of the people that we will encounter, most of the people that we are a part of, don't have that inner strength and are oftentimes trying to portray this outer acceptance, to be like an attractor or to look attractive. We think about, why do we want to be attractive to others? So that they will want to be with us, be in our company, be connected to us, so that we won't be rejected. Because then this goes right back to that basic human tribal fear of disconnection or separation, which is just an illusion, means that our safety has been compromised. If we are not attracted, we are not accepted. If we are not accepted, we are dead. So
you
having
realize that acceptance is here, right? That's like the opposite of what you're suggesting. It's like our brain thinks this separation exists. But when we look at it like, but if you're always separated here, you don't need that connection externally.
Yeah. If you realize that inside, we're always connected. We're always one. Like, think about children. I think this is like so up your alley. Think about how children are when they go through that age, that separation anxiety. They start moving farther and farther away from their parents, and then they look back to check if they're still there. And when the parents move away, the kids are like, that separation anxiety occurs because they're starting to realize that they're in an individual human body. But that separation actually doesn't really exist. Like, cellularly, their parents are present. This is a little bit of an out there concept, I think is a little hard for some people to understand, but it's that play with our separation and our oneness that we're starting to experience as kids. Because when we're young, we realize that we're connected, even outside of our mother's womb. We still realize we're connected.
Yeah. And I think it's such a space of compassion as well when we can appreciate that feeling of separation. I think every human on the planet can find something that they can reference.
Totally.
And the emphasis that we put on children to like quickly recover, it's like, you'll be fine. and like the snatching kind of experience. I don't know if you'll ever have that happen with your children, but I was like, how about we just slow it down a second? Like, don't rush me out and don't rush them off. Like, just that whole like Band-Aid, like just rip the Band-Aid off. They'll be fine. And it's like, well, are you going to offer them compassion when you remove them, and like the reassurance, and not this just like snap out of it, get over it quick? You know, it's like, can we allow for that space to even just be appreciated, so that maybe the children can recognize their connection still?
I know there's a lot of different scenarios that come up, but the thing that comes to mind is like dropping kids off at daycare because we have to rush off to get to a job, and not allowing for that space. I mean, we've got a lot of parents that are, you know, they're at the end of their survival rope. And so of course, this is some of the paradigm that we're looking to break down, but this shows up in our bodies, and the whole idea of being attractive, or the separation that might come up if we're not considered attractive to somebody else.
What I was going to weave in here too is like going back to like, just as if it doesn't feel good when you disconnect quickly, for most of us, I don't think, from our children in that way, right? It doesn't feel good. It's like, what doesn't feel good in our bodies, in terms of going back to like thinking about working out, like it has to be this way, coming from, you know, they talk a lot about motivation. It's like, I don't really think we need motivation. We want desire, what feels good, because when someone desires something, they never have a problem sticking with it, right? Like, you don't ever have to tell me, Erin, you have to get up and you have to go surf. Like, I'll just go, right? I love that. But if we are forcing ourselves to do something we don't want to do, we need to check in and be like, why do we not want to do that? Like, there's probably a really something deeper underneath there that we're not paying attention to. We're not giving attention, you know, paying attention and giving attention to, right? Of like, why are we feeling like this? Like, and there's not, and this goes back to bodies in general, right? There's not like one size fits all with diets. I don't even want to call them diets, right? Like, if the diets worked, you know, I think we're all on the same page around belief, but if diets work, then there wouldn't be a new diet all of the time.
Right?
Yeah, you know?
And I think, sorry, I'm gonna.
No, it just is like, what feels good, right? Like what we want to eat, how we want to move our bodies is different for every person. And why do we continue to try to shove ourselves into a box?
Because that's what's been marketed to us.
Versus the conditioning, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so my thoughts were the ideal body, whatever that is to you. And all I can keep going back to is this world of selfies, right? And if I have that body, and I can be happy to look at myself in the mirror, and I can post on all the different social medias, look how great I'm doing. To me, that's another one of those masks we've been talking about, right? And the more, I mean, I think about the celebrities who do this, and think about how much pain is probably behind those masks. For regular people too, but I really think, because they're the ones so prevalent with it, right? All the influencers and people are out there who are posting all these things, and are they happy in the skin they're in? And I think most people believe that the outward exterior reflects, or at least presents, a feeling of what's interior. So if I look good on the outside, you're going to believe that I feel good on the inside, and we're not going to have to talk about those sticky subjects.
Right.
And that's, you know, and if you don't like what you're seeing, it's something you can control, or you believe you can control it. But Tanya said, hey, the patterns just happened, whether she was participating in the eating events or not, until she figured out it was the stories. So all the way deep down inside, it's the stories of our happiness, the stories of our contentment with our own skins that we've been given. or chosen, depending on your perspective on that.
Mm.
And I don't know, I just see it as a mask.
It totally is. It's the I think of an M&M. It's like the hard candy coated shell that's holding the stuff that's on the inside, and like people can't see what's going on in the inside, but they kind of can. I was watching the Kyle Cease when he was talking about basically if you want to know how everything's going on in your manifestation, in your past and your beliefs and stuff, just look at your environment, look at what's going on outside. And I was thinking about how I kept getting injured with CrossFit. It was like, oh, I'm certainly strong on the outside, but I keep getting injured. What's asking me to slow down? What's asking me to stop and take a look at what's going on here? And with food and just like all of the mask that we present to the public. And there are some people that are really good at crafting a beautiful mask. And I totally agree with you, Brenda. Like, you wonder sometimes, is it truly like that on the inside, or is it just the facade that's hiding all of the inner turmoil that's going on?
I think to your point, the M&M is really messy on the inside. If you peel that, if you peel that shell off, it's going to start melting and getting gross, right? No, that's just what you said, the M&M analogy. But yeah, it's. I want to also go back and answer the January thing and talk about that, because the calendar is a new beginning. And I think that's why a lot of people might think about doing it but there's also a new beginning, like on your birthday, or there's a new beginning at a new moon, a full moon. I mean, there's all kinds of places where that can be, but I think we've been marketed, I'm going to keep saying that word, I think we've been marketed that new beginnings are the first of the year. And we've just said goodbye to the old year, we've said goodbye to the mess of that, and we're going to start out fresh, and we're just going to make it better, and another mask can go on, right? I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be fit, I'm going to eat well, I'm going to do all these things. And how long does that last? Like you said, if you don't desire it, you're not going to stick with it, but it seems like the thing to do. And I personally have past stories of having issues setting goals, because the minute I actually state a goal, then that becomes something I can be judged against. So I never set New Year's resolutions, because I know I have a habit not to stick with things, or I make things that are not attainable for me. And then I just go off the wagon, and then I judge myself for not having lived up to the promise I think I made myself. And that becomes a whole nother story of the body. But I've started looking at the Mel Robbins high five, because I'll be honest and say I'm not thrilled with what I see in the mirror, and I have a hard time looking at myself in the mirror. I avoid it at all costs. So starting to look at that and learning how to high five myself about different aspects of myself that don't necessarily match what I see in the mirror, but to get that level of self-worth up and self-love up, because that is dramatically missing in a lot of people, including myself.
It's interesting you say that, because how we physically look is one small part of what our body does for us. Like, I was having this conversation with my mom, and I don't know what I said, but I was like, you birthed 3 babies. She's had, some heart things. And I'm like, and your heart continues to beat for you. And every morning when you wake up, your breath and your heart, and like, it continues to come back every single day for you. And I know, which is probably a societal thing, is so focused on, how we look a certain way, but it's like, our bodies are just so amazing in what they do for us, and how quick we are to go to just
Visual.
what it actually looks like, versus like, we never have to say, kidneys, please clean out all of my,
Yeah.
blood, and make sure I pee enough today. And, like, our bodies are constantly doing these miraculous things for us. And I mean, and it's, natural. That's where our brains go. It's like, what we don't like, but like, focusing on so many other things that our bodies do besides just, how they look. And
I think that presentation of like appreciation and gratitude is such a great practice. And I want to like kind of piggyback here on what Brenda was saying, coming from the most critical version of myself. I could find moments of appreciation for the innards, right? The automatics that were just happening. And then I would see the mirror. And it was like that was such a strong practice and such a conditioning of like, and Mel Robbins even had shared, like, I don't remember the value of time, but she was like, I hated myself. And to finally be able to like witness that and like allow that kind of relief. When she said that in the interview, I was like, holy shit, me too. And I think it was something that I wasn't allowing myself to experience. I was like trying to force myself into gratitude without really being honest and saying, I don't like this. And not knowing that I could change it through love. Not knowing that I could like be a compassionate space for myself and eat healthy, right? Like I always felt like it needed to be restrictive. It needed to be aggressive. It like had to be this like firmness and not like a softness. And I'm like, just so appreciative of people that are using their platforms to share the shit that nobody wants to talk about, right? Like who would ever say that Mel Robbins would look at herself in the mirror? I mean, she's a public figure. And to think that she hated herself. I love that. I love that she had the braveness to share, and that she shares now the high five, and like the psychology behind it is really cool.
I think it's what Tanya was talking about before, though, but like we all are the same. Like we think that we're separate, right? We think because you're, a public speaker or you're an actress or whatever, like we all are the same, like special and not special, right? Our brains say terrible things to us, and we all are unique in our own way. And yeah, for sure, like people using it's like I think we're just all the same.
We are. When Brenda was saying that, I was thinking about, Chrissy, how you talked about beating yourself up with the gratitude stick. I had the experience when I met Christy and Aaron at the retreat. And when I saw the pictures at the retreat afterwards, I was like, what happened? What happened to that body? I remember looking at those pictures and thinking, the last time I wore that dress, it was smoking hot. What the hell happened? And sitting down and recognizing all that my body had done for me, and at the same time looking in the mirror and going, yeah, like I appreciate that you've done all of these things and survived all of these illnesses, but I still don't like how you look. You're ugly. I feel gross. I feel unattractive. I don't feel pretty. I want to be pretty. And that was that digging down into the why I wanted to feel attractive. It was like, okay, if you had that ideal body, if you had that, the perfect hair, the perfect makeup, all of those kinds of things, how would you feel? And I was like, attractive. Because it was really easy to, it was like, yeah, my body breathes. Yeah, my heart beats. And could I still look sexy on the outside? But why?
Mm.
That's like, why do I want to lift 150 pounds over my head? And I was realizing, and it took me, it's been a process of working through that spiral of realizing I want to be attractive so that I maintain connection, so that I feel wanted, so that I feel lovable.
Mm.
And that big thing has been breaking those things down. I love that Brenda is doing the high five. When I was listening to Mel talk about that, before I listened to that podcast, I think the same one that you listened to, Brenda, I have been thinking there is a meme, not a meme, a video clip that went viral a few years ago. And I was thinking, I want to recreate this viral video clip. And somebody will probably beat me to it, which is totally awesome. But I was like, how I feel now. There was this little girl standing on her bathroom counter. I love school. I love my parents. I love my, like, she was just like, I love this. I love that. And that's how I feel now. But it took me a while to move through first, like understanding how I was trying to beat myself up with the gratitude stick at first, then appreciating all that my body, actually finding appreciation and compassion for all that my body does for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving into that space of what would it mean to me to be attractive, to feel like I was lovable or worthy or wanted by others. And the evolution up here in the cosmos is this, like, I'm the girl on the counter in the bathroom going, I love my body, I love my friends, I love
Please
my
do
life.
it. Come on.
All right, maybe that's my task this afternoon.
This is the new viral TikTok coming at you hot. I love that you landed on something that's kind of in my brain. The idea of the feeling of attractive. Because I'm like, number one, is it a feeling? I'm always like really curious about these like different things. And isn't my perception of attractive different than Erin's? And Erin's attractive is different than Brenda's, right? Like there's so much subjectivity in that. But if it's like, if you just give yourself, like what you said, give yourself permission to just define it. Like, what does attractive for me look and feel like? Not through the eyes of social media, not through the eyes of my husband, right? It's just like, just me looking at me feeling me. Like, what does that look and feel like for me, not for the objectification of me?
Exactly.
But what a vulnerable space, right? Because in that is even like some separation. Like if I stop, this is kind of my theory. If I stop thinking about like what my husband might think, do I even consider what he thinks anymore? Does that create more distance? And just kind of a real vulnerable space for sure.
At first, it does feel like it can potentially create distance or separation. But the outcome, if you can make it to the other side, which I think we're all capable of doing that, the outcome on the other side is when I find everything about me attractive to me, people just naturally sort of like start gravitating.
Gravitate. Yes. It's like the most attractive thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful.
I'm like,
energy and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm all that in a bag of chips. Like, I got everything he wants.
Yeah.
Even if he at times has thought, that's not what I want.
Right.
Yeah. But there's a tremendous amount of fear and uncertainty in that. We've
Very
never
much.
done that before. Like when we think about what our experience as humans has been up to this point, we've never done that before. Like I've been telling my daughter lately, I'm like, I taught you not to be selfish. Throw that shit out the
Right?
window.
Right.
I'm like, I want you to start being selfish AF. Like you just think about
Yeah.
you. And that's not from a like, you don't matter kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not putting that focus on other people don't matter, which is what we've deemed as selfish.
Right.
It's I matter. I matter more than anything. That I feel good, that I feel loving towards myself is what I'm doing, kind and loving to me first, always me first.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
It's that secure your mask before you secure those next to you.
Yeah. And
It
if we
always-
can't do that, no one else can, right? Like I think I've shared this so many
Exactly.
times. Like I tried so hard to put that responsibility on my husband. God bless that man. Was not his job. You know,
Yep.
like, oh yikes. He's right here. He's sleeping. And I always like, I feel like he's listening.
The vibrations are floating upward.
I'm like, my bad, buddy. My bad.
Yeah.
I love it too. I'm like, also, I don't know if the word arrogance, I don't know. I just feel like growing up, it was always like, stay humble. Like, don't brag about yourself. Like, there was just some kind of like negative teaching, whether it was indirect or direct. And I don't know, it was like the deflection of the compliments, right? Like there was no receiving of any of that, or like just being proud of yourself even. That's taken me a long time. And I feel like I am just like dipping my toes in the water sometimes, but I think I shared one today in the Marco Polo, like I'm starting to feel when I receive a compliment, I can like, oh, thank you. Right. Rather than just like the instinct of like, no, that's not me. But I think all of that is like in that, right? Because if I can love me, then I can receive that.
Well, what's cool about receiving that is people are reflecting to you what they see.
Mm.
They're reflecting to you what they see in you.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes along with that humble and arrogance thing, because like when you think about like, I'm just proud of who I am. I am loving. I am kind. I am creative. The people that are like, don't get too big for your britches there, girl, are the ones that are feeling like what's reflecting back out of them is they're connecting with this part of themselves that feel like they do not have that. Or if you have it, you're somehow taking it away from them.
Yep. Yeah.
It's about worth, right? And I mean, ultimately it's about your worth. And we've been taught to deflect and push down and all those other things. I had something I was going to say about that.
Somehow, if you're more worthy,
Taking away from someone else, right?
Yeah,
It's like the
but-
ultimate lack.
But here's the thing, I can easily receive a compliment for things I do,
Mm.
right? Like if you did a good job at XYZ project, or you know, your meal was delicious, or things like, you know, things I do.
Mm-hmm.
But the compliments about me as a person, like if somebody were to tell me, oh, you have such a caring heart, I wouldn't know what to do with that, because I didn't do anything for you to be praising me over. And, you know, or if people say, you know, I really like you, I want to be your friend, not that that actually happens, but it's like, well, wait, what do you see in me? I don't understand why you would want to be friends with me as
100%.
a deflection, and that because of the worth issue, right? Because of, I mean, we all have the, if you're not doing, not all of us, but some of us still have, if you're not doing, what good are you? And I think a lot of it has to do with just being able to accept who you are, just being.
I was just thinking that. I was like, who you be, like you being.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm like, of course, that's the first thing I think about with you, Brenda. I'm like, your heart. Such an interesting thing that you would say that, because I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. You have the biggest heart. And that your instinct would be like, what?
Yeah,
What are
but
you
you see,
talking
that
about?
makes you think that, because I
Listen.
don't feel like that. I mean,
I'll
and not-
start a list.
This is really curious. I would be, because Brenda, you know, when you and I have had our talks, and we don't have to like go back to the past and like, you know, drum up all of that. Like sometimes people think like, oh, we have to go start digging and figure out the reasons why, but you've shared, right? Like you and I have that commonality of you did the good grades, you got the reward, right?
Right.
It's like that giving, you know, or if the earning, I should say, the earning for the love and the affection.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so curious how many of us are like so much in that, like I have to do in order to, right? And
The
you and me,
condition.
Brenda, too, with the money, right? Like in order, who am I if I don't make the money, if I
Exactly.
don't, goes back to that being part. And for some of us, like Christy, like you talked about, you know, like with your upbringings, like the way that your body looks, that is how the value or the worth came, right? But for me and Brenda, I think, right, Brenda, it's probably more so like the grades and the money. And maybe for you, Tanya and Christy, it was more so how your body looked and, or, you know, things of that sort. And
For me, it's definitely been a blend of both. It was not only how I looked, but how I performed.
Yeah. Achievement in general, you know, just any
Yeah.
kind of opportunity to achieve.
The strongest, the most perfect, doing it right, doing it above and beyond somebody else.
Yeah.
Competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just such a, I'm like coming back to what one of the things that you said, Tanya, I wrote it down. I'm building a body out of unconditional love. And it's like we're having to identify our conditioning and then like recognize the opportunity to decondition.
I love
Right.
that you use the word opportunity. That's exactly what it is. I was talking to a client this morning about setting intentions versus goals, and seeing the experiences that we've had in our past, instead of looking at them from the lens of probability, because probability is all about safety. We're like hedging our bets or odds of what we expect to happen. And so that means that when we're functioning from that place, we're thinking about, okay, well, I need to lose weight in order to be attractive. I've tried this before, so like that didn't work. We're working for that lens of probability, because maybe we've had a bad experience, or like I was in a relationship where I thought or I believed that somehow my attractiveness wasn't enough. And so when we do that, we're basically down on what had happened in the past. This was bad. I don't want to experience this again, versus seeing it as an opportunity to witness the contrast. Oh, I need to see what I don't want first in order to create what I do want. But in order to create what I do want, I have to move a little bit out of probability into possibility, which is allowing me to have a more open acceptance. Like if I can accept actually the past, if I can understand it, why did I want that thing? That allows us to move more into possibility, which is uncertain and can be really scary if you don't feel like you're safe on the inside. So every experience is an opportunity when we're looking at it from a realm of possibility.
So cool.
I just had a hit on the words you used that just like sent me.
Fair.
So when I hear the word probability, that's a binary word for me because it either is success or failure. Probability of success, probability of failure. And if your past experience has been failure at a diet, let's just put that one out there, your past performance is going to indicate your future performance, or an indicator of your future performance that the next thing you're going to try isn't going to work either. There's a probability to that probably could be mathematically calculated. But when you use the word possibility, that word in and of itself has so much lift and opportunity, yes, but that's not the word I'm thinking about, but just uplifting and light, right? Because to me, probability is a heavy term, and not meaning weight, but a heavy term of you're either one way or the other. But possibility has like a wave, a curl of a wave or something to me that's much lighter. And I want to recognize those words because they just hit me really, really hard.
Like, I feel like I want to expand on that, Brenda, because I'm like, probable to me feels like predicted and like cold and like just not very exciting either, in my opinion. But like possibility to me is just like expansive. Like, that word to me is just like there are no limits type of thinking, like very open and fluid and how fun.
Yep. And very programming of belief. Like our words are a vibration. Like when you think about language is a vibration. And what vibration does the word probability versus possibility hold?
Yeah.
Probability is very much, of course, we look at probabilities because that's what's kept us safe. That is that hedging our past experience with our future to try and like, what's going to be safe? And then the beliefs that we have around it. Living a life in possibility, boy, it's like the wild, wild west.
I was gonna say, no parachute. Just let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you're not limited to an either or answer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Carrie?
that is terrifying if you don't feel like you have internal safety.
Right.
Like if your nervous system isn't there yet, that is terrifying.
Very much
And
so.
I think that comes back to the question that Erin led us off with, was like, what is the energy around the desire to want to lose weight or want to change your body the beginning of the year? And I'm just curious what you all think, since we are, January 3rd today. What is your current energy? Like if you just had to do a little bit of a check, like a thermostat check right now for your own current energy. Because I'm thinking energetically, like possibility versus probability. We just talked about how those two things feel different. If we do like a check-in right now and think, like, to me, I feel excited. And so when I think about this January, beginning of the year, restart, all of that kind of stuff, it energizes me. And so in this current moment, I don't feel bad when I judge it about having like a little bit of a refocus on like health and wellness. What is your all's current energy?
I would say fun and peace. Like I go between like it's fun and then just like a peace, or just it is like, I don't know if that's
Content.
Yeah, content maybe.
I'm like wondering what's going to come out of Tanya's mouth.
I'm just playing. I am having such a good time playing with unconditional love. Like, what would, because I'm not only thinking at the body level, but I'm thinking about my life right now. I'm thinking about the vessel, the house, the containment system that holds me from time to time, like getting ready to, find a boat and move out, have the ocean be my home. I'm just playing with so much possibility right now. I'm so excited. I see where I've moved from, like, hating my body, hating how I looked. I've experimented and played with that, and I've extracted so much amazing stuff from that. I've experimented with, like, okay, I'm going to honor what my body has done for me, but I still don't like how it looks on the outside. To, like, I'm like, give a shit. I don't care how I look to other people. I only care about how I look to me. And right now I'm just having so much fun playing with, like, what's going to be the outcome of a Tanya, loose identity of a Tanya built out of unconditional love and being attracted just to myself. Like, I cannot wait to see how this experiment turns out.
I'm
I've tried it.
excited.
I've tried it all the other ways. I've tried the hating. I've tried the shame. I've tried the disgust. I've tried all of those things.
Yep.
So, like, what have I got to lose?
I love it. What about you, Brenda?
I'm probably on the lower end of the spectrum as far as self-acceptance goes still. But I will acknowledge that shifting language is going to be key for me, because just the feelings of the words possibility, right? Because anything's possible, including my ability to change the way I feel, right? And so the possibility of moving beyond some of the conditioning that I've had, you're a big gomp and your sister's a little delicate flower, right? So there's been conditioning back there that's like, you can't be attractive because that's not who you are. So there's a lot of optimism in the word possibility and a lot of lightness and encouragement in that word. So it's feeling better. How's that? It's feeling better. It doesn't feel great, but it's feeling better, and it doesn't feel heavy and depressive. And that's an important, signs of movement are always positive.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was just there, Brenda, like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. Like, really? So I always tell Tanya, I feel like she's just like right in that next chapter ahead of me. And I'm like watching her and just like admiring, like, oh, okay, I can get there. I think that's the beauty of sharing these kind of journeys, is to think that certainly there's other women out there, men, whoever, people experiencing this.
And we don't have to jump from here to there, right? Like,
right
where you're at, Brenda, just one little over, just each of us, just one little over.
I think of it like the tides too. Like, being able to come in and go out. It's just like where I started us out, that inhale, pause, exhale, playing with that exhale a little bit more, the pause, and then knowing that we get to inhale again. Like, we don't, tomorrow I might be totally in the tide going out. I might have a moment where I'll catch a glance of myself in the mirror and I'll be like, oh, tide's out. Oh, wait. Tide's going to come back in. It's okay. Yeah. So having that ability to move through, knowing that we don't always have to be like tides in, tides in, tides in, tides in, tides in.
Yeah. That's pressure.
The ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I think, like, what is the resets? Like for me, reset was always reset, meaning how do I get my body smaller? That's what reset meant in my brain, right? Like, I'd gained weight or my jeans no longer fit or whatever the measurement was. How do I get back? and it was like restrict, work hard. And now I'm looking at like my reset is like more water, rest. Like, who is this version? You know, today, one of my calculations was to go sprint. I was like, and that's a no. I will not be sprinting. Now, might I take a long walk or maybe get on my bike and like increase the resistance? Maybe. But a sprint, absolutely not. Not happening.
Yeah.
Well,
Delicious as always.
I
That's
love
my
it.
word for 2022, by the way. Delicious.
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 That girl that I've been doing her thing, she always says, yummy, 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 yummy. And I'm like, very interesting. I feel like I kind of got a dose of that with Danielle. What would she always say? She say delicious?
She says delicious. Mhm.
Oh,
Oh,
maybe
does she?
Mhm.
maybe it was her that I was like,
Yeah.
what are you talking? Delicious. I feel like she uses another word. Anyway, sorry, that doesn't need to
Okay.
be included in the captions or whatever. But
Until next time.
until next
Till
time,
next time.
I loved it.
So much fun.